Good morning. I thought we will stick on to the neonatal emergencies for now. As you know, there are a lot of complications which can happen in the NICUs, and most of us working in NICUs are quite aware of these things. What I would like to bring in the next 20 minutes is focus your things on what are the emergencies which can happen unexpectedly in an NICU setup, and as a nurse, what are the things which you will do to sort out the problem. Now, some of the slides which I put, or maybe some of the topics which I put, may have already been dealt with previously, either the previous speaker or previous weeks. But I think that it will all add up to your knowledge, so you don't have to worry about a repetition. So let us move. Now, this is a baby with a breathing difficulty. Like you can see the chest in drawing, you can see the subcoastline drawing, you can see the intercoastline drawing. So what is this? This baby has respiratory distress. Now, you don't have to worry, like what is this? It is an ileal membrane disease. Is it a pneumonia? Is it a pneumothorax? It's a meconium aspiration. So a lot of differential diagnosis will come into your mind. But of course, the immediate priority is you will have to lift up his oxygen saturations. You will have to start oxygen if the baby is not doing well on room air. Now, one of the things which I would like to highlight is, of course, the HMD, the pneumothorax, the meconium aspirations, the doctor will come into the picture and sort out the problem. But from the nursing point, you will be calling the portable X-ray mostly before the doctor comes because the baby is having that much of a distress. And when the X-ray is taken, as you can see, there is a bit of air collection around the lung. So what does this mean? There is air outside the lung. So air outside the lung means pneumothorax. So of course you have to call the doctor whether to put a chest tube, whether to aspirate. But if there is a delay in the entry of the doctor, the baby's life is in danger. So if you're a good nurse, you should at least know what you're supposed to do. Now, depending on your unit protocols, you may or may not be allowed to do such procedures. But for us, as a nurse concerned, you should definitely know what to do if the doctor is not around. Now, this is a transilluminator. Most of us have seen this. It's a small torch-like equipment, and you shine it, and you will see the collection of air underneath the subcutaneous tissue. And this is outside the lung. So this is a pneumothorax. Now, how do you aspirate it out? It's a simple thing. Everybody has all those 10 ml syringe, 3-way tap, and a butterfly needle. So you just have to identify the side where you have the pneumothorax by using the transilluminator, and then you just have to put in the butterfly needle in the second intercostal space in the mid-clavicular line. You just go perpendicularly, connect the 3-way, and aspirate out whatever air you can get. By that time, the second person or the senior or the doctor will come and stabilize. So you will have stabilized the patient before the doctor comes, and you would have saved their life. There is you can even connect to this 3-way to an underwater seal so that you will know that the air is bubbling out and all. But it's not mandatory in emergency situations. You can do like this. I just put up a picture of this. So it's a very simple procedure. You don't have to worry about anything, whether I will puncture the lung. Why? Because the lung is already broken and the air is coming out, so you don't have to worry about that. Now on the left side, will I hit the heart? So that is a cause of concern, but most of the time the heart would have shifted to the right side because the air is pushing it out. So you're probably safe in pushing it in the exact point in the mid-clavicular line in the second space. Now, for just an interesting thing, I just took the transilluminator and shined it in the abdomen. Now, what you're seeing, there is air collection outside the intestine. It's a pneumoperitoneum. There is a perforation of the intestine seen mostly in preterm babies. So you are seeing a lot of preterm babies in your unit, and you are going upon feeds, and suddenly you see that the abdomen is grossly distended and the baby is not doing well. You can use this transilluminator to shine it. If you see air collection like this, it may be a pneumoperitoneum, and you have to involve the surgeon and stop the feeds. So now coronary atresia is one thing which we don't think about it as a routine. Now this diagnosis mostly is with the nurse. Like the nursing staff will come and tell you, doctor, the baby is having severe baby is having severe distress, and so I'm not able to put in an NG tube. I try to aspirate out his stomach, but the NG tube is not going through his nose. So you try the other part also, that both through both nostrils the NG tube is not going. So it's a bilateral choanal atresia. And when you put in a laryngeal LMA or a laryngeal mask airway, then just keep it over the nose or inside the mouth. The breathing settles down. So it's like a very classical sort of situation. When there's a severe distress, you put the LMA through the mouth and the baby is so comfortable. But the nurse is the one who makes a diagnosis. The nurse tells you that, sir, I can't put in the nasogastric tube. So that is the catch. So when you always have difficulty in putting the nasogastric tube, make sure that it's of the correct size. And then if you can't put it in, don't break open whatever is there. You just go ahead, try the other nostril, and then inform the doctor concerned. So it's a rare diagnosis, but it's a very, very important one from your point. Now regarding pulmonary hemorrhage. Now pulmonary hemorrhage is like a very serious lung condition. When you ventilate preterms, you usually see massive bout of bleed and then you can't resuscitate the baby. Now when you always see a good nurse will be able to diagnose a pulmonary hemorrhage much earlier than a massive sort of situation comes up. How? When she does suction, she will say, sir, I got a bit of blood staining is there. Did you use the suction very firmly? No, sir, I just put in and the blood was there. It's a fresh blood. Okay, then we say it's a pulmonary hemorrhage. Don't do any more suctions. Whatever clot formation is there, let it be there. Go upon the PEEP and then you take an X-ray. You may see massive bleed. We may not even see if it's an early hemorrhage. So if you're a good nurse, what you have to do is you make sure that when you do your whatever suction you do at the unit protocol, based on unit protocol, you do at correct intervals. You're getting a bit of blood. Make sure that you inform the doctor concerned. Think about pulmonary hemorrhage. If you have not used that much of trauma, it's not a mucosal bleed, it may be a pulmonary bleed. So go upon the EP, take an X-ray and inform the doctor concerned. So this is one of the very sort of dangerous situations you can happen, small, extremely small preterm babies, and the nurse can contribute a lot in making the diagnosis. Now from the respiratory part, I'm moving on to the lung, the CVS part. I'm not going into the details of the various cardiac malformations, but a good nurse should be able to know the perfusion. How do you look for the perfusion? You press over the sternum for around 5 seconds and see the capillary refill. Now, if you're getting a capillary refill time of more than 3 seconds, that is significant. But you can't count like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 like that. You have to make it your own way. Either you say 2001, 2002, 2003, something like that. You make sure that you're counting for 3 seconds. And if you get a delayed capillary refill, you make sure your warmer temperatures are all correct. The baby temperature is normal. And if you are still getting a refill, prolonged refill, you make sure that you inform the doctor concerned. He may be starting a normal saline bolus or inotropes based on the baby condition. So always make it a habit when you take over a shift to see the perfusion in an unstable baby. Now, of course, you all have seen cyanosis, I'm quite sure. But when you see cyanosis, you don't think too much about whether it's a lung or it's a heart. You start on oxygen, you make sure the warmer output is good, you check the 4 limb saturations, you check the BP and check the temperature. Now, if everything is fine, you start him on oxygen, and if the oxygen saturations are going up, you should make probably a lung pathology, and if it's not going up, it's a heart pathology. So if it's a cardiac thing, you have to inform the doctor concerned immediately, and whatever steps has to be taken has to be done. So from the nursing point, the cardiac issues, you have to make sure there is no cyanosis. You have to make sure that there is a perfusion defect. Early itself, you can pick it much before a doctor comes into the scene. Now I just put up a slide on pulmonary hypertension. How does a nurse contribute? Now when you get a cyanotic baby, you take 2 saturations, one in the preductal, that is either in the ears or in the right hand, and then the postductal, that is either of the limbs. If you get a saturation difference of more than 10%, it is probably pulmonary hypertension. You have to start him on oxygen, and the doctor concerned will tell you whether to start on nitric or sildenafil, whatever, depending on your unit situation. But a nurse should be able to say the saturation differences. Nurse should be able to find out the desaturation, start him on oxygen, whatever. I'm just saying the basics which all of us are doing, but these things, if you go in a stepwise way, you won't miss a lot of problems. Now, I have not gone into the details of the cardiac issues because the various lesions and the pathology is beyond the scope of this talk. But anyway, what is the one of the commonest and the most dangerous situation which is seen in almost all nurseries? It's hypoglycemia. The baby will be commonly lethargic. The classical seizures and all are very common, very infrequently seen. Lethargy is the commonest presentation. So a good nurse should be able to identify that the baby is lethargic. She should be able to check the random blood sugar and to start a bolus of 10% dextrose. Now, hypoglycemia is the most important complication which can happen in any unit, because almost all the diseases which are cured, the baby will be perfectly normal. But if you can treat blood sugar after a few hours, you might have already made a lot of damage to the baby. So a good nurse should be able to find out, so yesterday the baby was very active, today is not very active. Can I check his blood sugar? And I checked his blood sugar, I got it as 1820. And you should be able to give the dextrose even before the doctor comes. I think that is the most important take-home message from this talk. So neonatal seizure is a place where nurse requires a lot of expertise to diagnose seizures. Of course, the common generalized tonic-clonic seizures and all are quite easy to make out, but the subtle seizures are the commonest, as you all know. It's around 50% of the neonatals' newborn seizures are subtle seizures. The mother brings the baby to the hospital saying that, sister, I think that my child had a seizure. And when you see, there is nothing. So the doctor comes and says he also doesn't see anything. And most of our units don't have the EEG machines in ICUs. So it depends, the nurse is our EEG machine. So she should be able to find out whether the baby is having a seizure or not. So how does she find out? It's purely experience to pick out a subtle seizure. So the doctor, the baby has some uprolling of eyes, he has some finger chewing, he has some lip smacking, he has some cyclic movements of the limbs and all these things to make out requires a lot of expertise. And once you diagnose a seizure, the loading of the medicine, phenobarbital, is commonly given as a first leg, although some units do give levetiracetam. Now, phenobarbital loading, I think we already had a session on this. Requires a lot of things, you have to cross-check it, you shouldn't overdose the child. 1 unit more will give a lot of milligrams extra, and that may cause a lot of sedation, and you'll be confused whether the baby is sick because of the medicine or because of the disease. So, one, to identify a newborn seizure requires a lot of skill, especially subtle seizures, a lot of experience, and 2, of course, the treatment part. Now, extravasation injuries do happen occasionally in most units. Very painful situation, especially for the doctor concerned when he has to explain all these things to the relatives. Now, from the nursing point, whenever you take up the shift, if the baby is having an IV cannula, make sure that it is proper. There is no redness around the cannula site. And if there is, find out early extravasation and take out the cannula. If you hit a lot of extravasation and throughout the shift the extravasation has happened and nobody has noticed it, you have to immediately stop the infusion, elevate the limb and dress with non-occlusive hydrochloric and inform the doctor. Whenever you are giving concentrated dextrose, make sure that you don't give hyperconcentrated ones through the peripheral vein. When you are giving hypertonic salines, you are giving calcium chloride injections. As a nurse, you should know that any sort of leakage into the surrounding tissues will cause a lot of damage. And so you have to be absolutely sure that the cannula is properly inside the vein. So, of course, that these things has to be dealt with in a very serious way. Now, thermal injuries not seen nowadays, but of course, where there are old warmers and all, you see this sort of when there is malposition probes. As a nurse, when you take up a baby for your shift, make sure that the temperature probes are properly attached. Make sure the warmer is working properly, the set temperature and the current temperature and all is matching. All those sort of things you have to be very clear. Once you get a burns injury, I don't know how you can cope up with it from the legal aspect of view, but as a nurse, the doctor is completely leaving your child at your mercy. And as a starter, the first thing the nurse should know is how to properly place the temperature probe and how to keep the settings proper in the warmer so that you don't overheat or cook the baby. Now, from a nurse concern, umbilical venous catheter, I think all unit, at least one nurse should know to do, at least the senior sister should learn umbilical venous catheterization. Sometimes there are situations where the baby is totally sick, totally washed out, and you are not able to get any peripheral cannulas, and you need to give emergency drugs or emergency saline boluses. So this is just a cross section where you can see these two are the spherical ones are the arteries and the elliptical ones are the vein. So when you see this vein, you just cannulate this through the umbilical venous catheter with the help of the catheter, or if you don't have a catheter, you can use the nasogastric tube. Push in through 5 centimeters and give whatever medicines is required. If you don't know to fix the catheter, you can wait till the doctor comes. Or nowadays, you don't even need to suture it. There are a lot of plasters or adhesives to keep the catheter intact. So as a nurse, you should know how to cut the cord and to cannulate and to give a drug. This is the easiest procedure in ICUs. It's much more easier than putting a simple cannula in an extreme preterm. So there is no excuse for for a nurse not to know, or a unit nurse not knowing to do an umbilical venous catheter. And from the doctor's point of view, I think he should make sure that the nurses are efficient in this. There are situations where the mother will bring the baby saying there is vomiting of blood or there is a GI bleed, whatever. As a nurse, you should know that the commonest cause of the bleed may be a cracked nipple. So a simple nursing examination can find this out. Of course, there are a lot of diseases. Why I'm saying it's an emergency, the bleeding is maybe the surgical problems, which volvulus, which can cause bleeding. Now, when you get a volvulus or a sort of bleeding, you will immediately go for an X-ray. So the carry home message is like when you see an abdominal X-ray, if you don't see uniformly gas shadows on both sides of the abdomen, or you don't see gas shadows throughout the abdomen, it may be a surgical emergency. So if you are seeing vomiting of blood or a GI passing of blood through the motion, along with an abnormal gas pattern in the X-rays, you inform the doctor concerned. So bleeding is always an emergency. If you're not sure, inform the person concerned. Of course, vomiting of bile is also suggestive of intestinal obstruction, which is also an emergency. Anything green coming out of the mouth, it's a surgical emergency. You shouldn't give feeds. You have to start IV fluids and inform the pediatric surgeon or the doctor concerned. Now the last few slides, I think, probably the last one slide. This is RHIS immunization. So what is the role of a nurse? A baby comes to you with absolutely no history of anything, an outbound baby, and you see he's papery white, or if he is deeply jaundiced, you have to think about RHIS immunization, and you have to inform the doctor concerned, start immediate phototherapy and arrange blood. O negative blood in AB plasma is the ideal blood which should be arranged irrespective of the baby group. So that's all for me. I have just concentrated on a few of the common emergencies from the nursing point of view. I haven't gone into details of each and every pathology. I thought that you should benefit out of this. You should know what I'm looking at. It shouldn't be like any baby deteriorates immediately. Sir, come and see the baby. You should also try to work out. There are no great differential diagnosis in neonatology. It's always your brain and your presence of mind. Thank you. Thanks, you're a patient listener.